Hey everybody, and welcome to the first episode, or entry if you will, into a brand new vlog and podcast that we're going to be bringing right to you guys. My plan is for this to be available at least one every week, where we're talking about hot topics, industry issues, valuable information that we've learned along the way, and documenting our journey as we build our own companies within the equine industry. I want to share with you guys my story real briefly, give you guys some general context into who I am, where I've come from, and where we're going, so that you guys might have an idea if this is going to be for you. You know, this is my first go at a personal brand, but we're documenting the journey on us building our own companies. We've got quite a few irons in the fire. We're learning along the way. And so, you know, we might be trimming the fat, we might be adding to it. So we want to bring you guys like almost a live look into what we're doing, because essentially right now what I do every day is I train horses for a living. We ride hunters, jumpers, and dressage horses primarily for other folks, but my personal horses are ranch horses and quarter horse types. I love that is my style. That's kind of how I fit. But I also love the English side of it, working with the cross training and working with those people. So, you know, that information in terms of the actual horse training, the physical approaches, the mental approaches, the methodologies, the philosophies behind it, the techniques, and all that good stuff. You know, that's what we offer to the public through my other company, which is Colton Woods Horsemanship. You know, this right here, guys, what you guys are listening to or watching, first, I greatly appreciate you guys tuning in, but this is not necessarily a company right now. This is an outlet for me so that I can, you know, there's a time and a place for everything. And for our other company, it's very much horsemanship oriented. It's not business oriented. It's talking about what I said in terms of the philosophies and the techniques and how to train a horse, because that's what we do every day. We train horses throughout the week, and we spend the weekends traveling to and from those places. But that's only part of the journey. Like, horsemanship in itself is a lifestyle. It's a journey, you know, that I don't think you'll ever arrive to. You can certainly excel at, but you'll never stop learning. And it's the same thing with life. But this right here, what we want to bring to you guys is going to open the gates, kick them wide open, talk about hot topics in the equine industry, talk about, you know, running a business, marketing, P&Ls, budgeting, all sorts of that stuff. Collaborate even with some other professionals, because I want this to be a raw look into what we're doing, what we believe, what we're learning, who we're working with along the way. It's very much an open, we're keeping them wide open, guys. I'm not putting a box on where this might go. You know, I'd certainly love to get a community together where we're all working together, we're able to share content and ideas, because I want to bring as much value and content to you guys that maybe we even do this as a live broadcast at some point. As right now, this is available. This can be available on our website, as well as available on podcast once we get the audio stripped off of this. And then it's also, you guys are going to see very much day to day. Our Instagram, which is Colton Woods Official, that has, you know, our live stories. It has little 1-minute vlogs throughout day to day. You know, just yesterday I had to run up to Frankfort, Kentucky, and I had to go out and essentially put some fires out. It was all business stuff. My wife and I are trying to get a mortgage, and so they called and they said, hey, you got 48 hours to get this stuff from the government. I'm like, 2 days? You're calling me at 5 o'clock, and I've got tomorrow and part of the next day to get it. So I had to call up there, ran up there, and so I did some vlogs and some photos and shared some insights, you know, throughout that process, because it's all about perspective. There's so much we can learn from each other, and I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker by any means, but I want to absolutely bring context and be able to help as many people as possible. We want to create a community, because the horse business, guys, or business in general, is hard enough as it is. I know that there's going to be a lot of similarities, if you will, between not just the horse business, but business in general. And so we're here to kind of break those gates open and keep working super hard as we go through there. So I want to share with you guys a little bit of who I am. I'm going to give you guys the brief rundown. As you guys keep tuning in, I'm sure that we'll throw in a little bit more along the way and more detail. But essentially, I grew up in High Point, North Carolina. Grew up in a family that was entrepreneurs. My dad, initially when I was first born, was into sales, and my mom was a flight attendant for Piedmont Airlines. And Then throughout my young toddler kind of childhood, they started their own company, which they've had throughout my entire life. So I grew up in a household, my parents run their own company. They were the ones that were putting in it. It was their baby. So, when they went to come and pick me up from school, it wasn't that I got to just go home and watch TV. No, I had to go back. I went back to the office. I sat in their office. I did my homework because they had to work till, they didn't work till just 5. They worked till 6 or 7 at night. And then my mom still went home and cooked dinner for everybody. It still got us to sports practice and stuff like that. I very much grew up in your average middle American household where we grew up in town, playing golf, playing sports, stuff like that. We were very privileged. My mom and my dad worked super hard to give us the opportunities that we did have. And looking back, we never wondered like, oh, can I go play soccer? No, we can't afford the cleats. No, we were able to get the cleats, get the basketball shoes, whatever, to go play the sports. And they were always very supportive of what we wanted to do. One of the really neat philosophies my mom had as a kid was that when we went shopping, you always have these kids and they're trying to grab stuff off the shelves and they want this, they want that, whatever. Well, my mom always said, you can get a book or you can get a plant. That was her rule. My brother was always the book kid. I was always the plant kid. Didn't grow up on a farm by any means. Like I said, grew up in town. But that was I always had like a bit of a green thumb. I enjoyed having a garden in the back, growing vegetables for the family and stuff like that. Eventually took over my mom's entire garden bed. At one point had worked a deal with a local restaurant to grow lettuce and tomatoes, and they'd pay me by the pound. So that was a pretty fun experience. And as a kid, growing up in that, they were very supportive of what we wanted to do. If we wanted to go play guitar lessons, they're like, well, he may not be the next Jimi Hendrix, but, we'll work up the opportunity because that might be something he enjoys. But along the way, I was always up to something. I was willing to do just about anything for $1 within reason. And so, as I was growing up, my mom would say, hey, if you pull the weeds out of the front yard, I'll pay you $5 for a grocery sack. And she was a stickler, man. They had to be heavy. So you'd pack full of these grocery sacks. You'd spend 4 or 5 hours picking weeds and stuff like that. And you get it $35 when I was 7, 8 years old. That was pretty good. And it ended up to where I remember, they'd order pizza, delivery man show up, and they'd realize they not have enough cash, but I did. So they'd come, hey, can we borrow some money from my 8, 9, 10, 13-year-old? And the next morning I was like, debt collector. I never liked the idea of debt. It was just something in my DNA from a very young age, and I'd be like knocking on their bedroom door like, hey, I didn't realize they hadn't have time to go to the bank, but I was like, hey, you guys owe me the $13.30 for the pizza. They're like, yeah, we'll get it. And hey, so as a young age, I was willing to do just about anything. I actually, at 3rd grade, started an entrepreneurial mice business. This was in lieu of my dad. My dad grew up raising small critters like rabbits and stuff like that as a kid. And so one of the things he did was mice as well. And I thought that was the coolest thing. So for Christmas one year, we got some aquariums, and I started down this mice venture where I had 2 little females and a black male. And so we started breeding mice in the basement in my parents' house, and so I'd rotate them around, and then I worked out a deal with the local pet store to sell the mice back to him. And at first he's like, man, I've already got a supply from mice. Well, he was having a hard time telling my 3rd grader no. And over the course of the next 2 years, when I was 3rd through 5th grade, I didn't know anything about genotypes and phenotypes, but I actually managed to get started breeding and getting curly-haired mice. Now, you may never have heard of a thing, but I promise this was the case. And so it became the local phenomenon. Like all my classmates were buying them. And so I had like these fancy mice is what they started to get. They started putting tags in the pet store that said fancy mice. And then it turned from this guy that didn't want to buy my mice from me because I started off with a brown one and a white one and a black one to I had these curly haired mice, and we were getting some different colors and stuff like that. And they started getting their own stuff in the pet store, their own container, their own aquarium where they had their own little tag, and he couldn't keep them in stock because people wanted them for pets. So it was the coolest thing. I was in awe with it, and that's one of my claim to fame, as a kid, that I was selling mice back to the pet store because that was my deal. I enjoyed the process of it. I enjoyed everything from breeding them to going down there and taking care of them and feeding them every morning. When friends came over, we'd get them out and play with them and stuff like that. And there's a story about one getting loose and me not being able to go on vacation, but we'll get to that one later. So yeah, then as I got out in high school, the horse part started, and I got into horses around the age of 16, and it was mainly because I wanted a job out on a farm. I didn't want to be in an office, so I went and worked on a horse farm, got introduced to the horses there at a local hunter jumper facility, which is the English type disciplines, tight breeches, coats and stuff, not cowboy hats, jeans, and button downs. But so we started in the hunter jumper industry, worked for 4 summers at an Arabian farm where we traveled the East Coast and up to Canada every summer, taking care of internationally competitive Arabian horses that did the English and Western disciplines. And so learned a ton there about hauling, taking care of horses of that caliber. But at this point had not spent much time, hardly any time at all, riding, and started volunteering during my high school years at a local equine rescue. And so I pretty much saw an issue. There was a demand in the market. They were really good at rehabbing horses, but they couldn't get them to homes because they didn't know anything. You either had the geriatric kind of horses that were super, 3 feet in the grave kind of deal, and for horse people that or for people that aren't familiar with the horses, like these horses are like 25, 26, 27, 28, maybe 30 years old. So they're on the decline because physically they might have arthritis, but they can't be ridden that much anymore, if at all. And it was a rescue and retirement. So the facility agreed to take those horses in so they could retire until they crossed greener pastures. But the other side of that was super young horses. So maybe horses that were a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, that probably had 25 years left in them. But so we could get them healthy, get them looking super good, but then no one would adopt them. And I asked them, I was like, what's going on? And they said, well, they just don't know anything. And I started to see that over the first 6 months that I was there. And so I asked them to put together a round pen, which is a structure that you could start training horses in. And I just started doing trial and error. I knew what the approach I wanted to do was, but I didn't know how to necessarily go about it. So I started trial and error, started training some horses, and got them pretty much to where they were super quiet, docile, easy to be around, and you could saddle them. They were okay with the saddle, but then I didn't have any experience really riding. So that's where we started outsourcing, finding some other trainers that could do the riding part. And so I was putting in all the groundwork, and then they were ready to be ridden, and then those horses started to find homes a lot better. And so that kind of led me down that path. While I was at the rescue, I got put on a hunch to pursue my horsemanship. I got pointed in the right direction because initially I didn't even know where to look, and ended up getting hurt, which led me to actually seeing a documentary which was called Buck, and I got turned on to the Buck Bram and Tom Dorrance Ray Hunt style horsemanship, which that really hit me right, like dead center in the heart, because I grew up as a kid that wanted a horse, a cow, and a rope in 25 acres as a kid. Kind of went there after I didn't get the L for several years in a row, but that's what I wanted. I wanted that kind of lifestyle, and these guys were cowboys that were making a living, and I never even knew that there was people out there that could make a living teaching other people how to train their horses, and it could be done in a way that the horses understood it. It was peaceful. It was just, overall, it was beautiful to watch. And so I was enamored. I was hook, line, and sinkered right there, and that's what I've been chasing ever since. So, throughout high school, I chased that, did the equine rescue, had a bit of a chicken operation that was under the table until I had to go out of town, and my parents had to take care of them because I had some chickens at the local rescue that was part of a science project for local eggs and all that stuff. And so I started with 8, ended up with over 20 because the demand grew in the market. So I was, having my chickens had eggs, and I was selling them to all the teachers at school, and all the money went back to help fund the rescue. But we were doing crazy good. And then I was like, well, if I got these chickens, then I had to get a rooster to take care of the dogs. So I'm like, well, heck, if I got this rooster, I just got him to take care of the dogs, but those eggs should be fertile. So of course you can see where this went. I ended up getting an incubator, hatching out chicks in my parents' basement, where their house was located in town on a golf course. And so I started hatching chicks out by about 40 at a time and selling them. And so it was just about anything to make a dollar. And I love the process of everything from, taking care of the chickens or taking care of the horses to the process of getting them better, feeding them, the nutrition side, educating them, producing a product that was wanted by the public. Absolutely. It was like, that wasn't something I necessarily learned. I don't think it was something that was in my DNA from the very beginning. And it certainly was nurtured through being in a household of entrepreneurs with my mom and my dad that showed me that you had to be willing to put in the work and stay dedicated to it. And so thereafter high school, I went to the University of Kentucky, where I went to the Equine Science and Management program, earned the degree there, and made some great connections, got a foundational education in terms from the program, in terms of from everything from health to disease to anatomy to facility design and management. There was so many different opportunities there. Didn't really ever want to go. I didn't want to go to college. I actually tried to convince my parents to let me take the year off. My dad was smarter than that and said, no, you're going to school, because he knew that I wasn't going to go back if I didn't go initially. And so I went and I swore to him. I was like, well, I'm graduating in 3 years. They're like, you'll love it, stay all 4. And I graduated in 3 years because I loved college. College was great. It was a blast. Joined a fraternity, for agricultural fraternity, it was social and professional. Those guys ended up being the best men in my wedding. And I wouldn't change a thing about that. The college experience itself was great. I did not enjoy going to class by any means. So I went to class. It was not a hands-on program. It was very much more science-based program. And then I started colts on the side, or I at least worked with some horses. And then over the course of my college education, I got to be around some more handy horsemen along the way. Got a pretty significant internship that took me to Iowa. And that really leapfrogged my horsemanship in terms of I knew that I was on the right track to what I wanted to do, and it gave me the confidence to keep going, to keep learning, and that's exactly what we did. So I started colts throughout college and took a job there afterwards with an international clinician and horse trainer here, and spent 2 years traveling on the road with them. I was in charge of everything from training horses to assisting and teaching clinics, managing clinics, and working with clinic hosts on structuring clinics, renting facilities, making sure that there was hookups and all the logistics in between, as well as organizing booths. So then we'd set up booths at all the major equine fairs and expos and things like that. So we'd have to work with them to getting booths, setting the booths up, running the booths throughout the weekend for product sales, membership sales, stuff like that. So I was assistant trainer that was at a company called Double Day and Horsemanship, and so I did that for about a year and a half. And initially when I went on with them, I was making nothing, absolutely nothing. And so in comparison, like my living expenses for a kid that, you come out of school and you have a college education and you want to go train horses for a living and you're making $200 a week. But I was willing to put in, I was like, if that's what it takes to get me to the next level, I will do it. I don't care, because I want to be around the best, I want to learn. And so I had 3 requirements when I took that job. I wanted to see the country, I wanted to meet new people, and I wanted to get better at training horses. And so I did that for a year and a half, and then those 3 things started to dwindle. And I was planning on headed out west, going to spend some time back in Iowa, to go out to Montana, and maybe even down to Nevada, to keep learning from some other people. And right before I left Double Dan and was getting ready to go out west, got engaged, and the fiance then was like, well, hey, I'm all up for you going out west, but now that we're engaged, it'd be really handy if you stuck around here and helped plan a wedding. So, that's what we did. I said, so then about the time that was happening, it was about 3 days before my last day on the job with DDH, and some friends called and said, hey, we heard you're going out of town. Why don't you come over for dinner? We'd like to see you before you go. And it comes to find out we had a nice dinner, and they showed me their facility, and they're like, hey, we've got an arena and some barn stalls that were not being used. Would you be interested? And, after talking with Meredith about it, who's now my wife, we ended up I said, okay, that'd be fine. I'll stick around here for a little bit longer and try to train some horses. I was like, and this was in October, so I did it throughout. I said, I'll do it till the spring. And then if spring comes around and the barn's not too busy, then I'll head out west, because I got a lot more I want to learn. I got some country I want to see, and I want to do it now. And so anyway, I set up shop there. We did a little bit of advertising, got some horses in, and by the time spring rolled around, barn was pretty busy. And so it was good enough to want me to stick around. We were starting to teach some clinics. And so now we've been there. Now it's going on just about 2 years now, or about 2 months shy of 2 years. And barn's been busy, and life's been good. It's been a huge learning curve. And, at the time, even now, I didn't anticipate going off on my own so early. I definitely had a plan of about 5, 7, 10 more years of learning from other people, then maybe venturing out off on my own. But I think that there's a greater plan. I think the man upstairs, God himself, has some things in mind, and we run into people, we meet certain people for a reason, and opportunities open up, and we've got to seize them when they're there. And so I took that opportunity, and I kind of anticipated I'd be heading out west in the spring. I know I wanted to, but I also didn't have this in mind. I didn't realize how blessed we'd be to be training horses for a living here in Kentucky. So anyway, so that's where we're at, guys. We're here just outside Lexington, Kentucky, about 10 minutes. And we're about 15 minutes from the horse park, Kentucky Horse Park. And so we train horses, like I mentioned earlier, and that's where we're at. And we've got some super exciting things. We've got my wife Meredith. She runs a graphic design, web design, overall branding for equine lifestyle businesses. And so she's very much dedicated to a part of the business that so many people in the equine business struggle with, which is marketing, strategy, and their website, social media kind of stuff like that is her avenue. And so that's kind of where we're at. I'm super excited to share this with you guys because, as I shared initially on this podcast and this vlog, I want to be able to open up the business side of things. I want to share with you guys where we've gone. There are going to be some really fun stories that'll come up that we will turn into some episodes for you guys, as well as really dive into industry issues, what we can do to bring content or bring value, to everybody, because the business is hard enough as it is. And I might have said this, but I can't stress enough, the business is so hard as it is, whether it's the equine business or you're trying to do a startup and you're trying to break into a market where there's heavy hitting players. But some people just want to cut each other's throats and get after each other. If you're good enough, you're going to make it. And I promise, if you're good enough, you're going to make it. I have no confidence that we're going to be here for a long time, but I want to make sure that people realize that honey versus vinegar thing, that was something my mom told me. You can always get more with honey than vinegar. And I kind of have to laugh because, sometimes she likes to throw a little vinegar too. We all do. We're competitive by nature, but we got to work together. We got to stick with each other and understand that, whoever's good enough is going to stick around, and whoever doesn't want it enough is going to be gone. So guys, I'm super excited to bring this podcast to you guys. You can find us on Instagram. It's Colton Woods Official, and that is going to be where we have Instagram stories, the day-to-days, and then on our YouTube channels, we'll upload some of that content as well, but that's going to be some more formal content. I really want to bring some friends on that we can do some Q&As with. We got a list running of some hot topics. Like one of the top topics that's going to be coming up, guys, is actually going to be talking about college equestrian students and the professionals that are hiring them. That is such a huge topic, and it's such a big thing right now because there's this stigma above millennials. Well, guess what? There's also Gen X too. So, it's not Gen X versus millennials. It's not the parents versus the kids anymore, because the parents raise the kids, but also what are the expectations that kids are coming out of college with. We were at a fair, so this is firsthand experience where we came out of a fair, and a college career fair, and these kids were asking us, we want $75,000, a car, paid benefits, paid vacation, and housing. And I'm like, me too. So guys, we're going to dive into that. That's like our super hot topics coming from somebody who went through an equine program, who invested money into that education, and then come out and to realize that you're only going to make $200 a week. That's not everybody's reality. That's my reality. We're going to share that story with you guys. We're going to dive into what might be a more feasible idea and plan, because maybe college isn't for everybody. Maybe it's not for every job and workforce, because there's a lot of great jobs. And we also got to talk about the professionals in it too, because I know that there's a stigma, and I'll go ahead and throw it out there now rather than wait. But not all the time is an equine degree actually respected within the equine industry, because they want that hands-on experience. They want that, go out and get them done, and you've been there, done that, seen it, know what it's like. And a lot of times college students don't have that. They might have done some internships, but maybe they weren't exactly to set them up for their career. So anyway, guys, we're going to be diving into a lot of hot topics within the equine industry. We're going to be sharing with you our journey as we build our own businesses, and overall, we're gonna be listening to you. We want you guys to engage with us. We want you guys to give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. You know, you can tell us it sucks if it sucks. You can tell it's great. You can provide, if you guys, there's something that you would like for us to dive into, we'd love to have your input, because ultimately this is for you. So greatly appreciate you guys tuning into the very first episode, whether you're watching on watching on our video vlog or listening through podcast. We look forward to working with you guys. We look forward to interacting. We look forward to building this community around this. And so thanks guys for tuning in. We hope you guys have a fantastic day wherever you are. Go out there, kill them, get them done. Best of luck to you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.